Hi there everyone, my name is Josepha and this is 10 characters that I'd really like to see in the Final Fantasy TCG that aren't already there. Now, there's a lot of characters that have already been represented in Opus 1, but I think there's a good few characters that could do to get a bit of a shine in the limelight that I think we will hopefully see in future releases, whether it be in actual sets, starter decks, or even promos. So I'm just going to jump straight in. Now, the first character on my list, I'm actually just going to address an elephant in the room that everyone's probably wondering, when is he going to turn up? When's he going to turn up? And it's Noctis. And with Final Fantasy 15 being pretty damn popular over the past year since its release, well, a few months, years stretching it, I don't see how they could not release Noctis in the Final Fantasy TCG. I don't think I could see him being anything other than a lightning forward and just having some ability that's relatively similar to Lightning herself. Maybe, I mean, we could do with seeing all of the Final Fantasy 15 cast really. Prompto, Gladio, Ignis, Arden, Regis, Luna, there's all sorts of things. Maybe they'll try and fit everything into an entire, just the whole of Final Fantasy 15 into a set later down the line. But for now, I think that a promo Noctis could satiate a lot of people. Now, the next character on my list is a character I'm hoping to see in Opus 2, given that we already know that Opus 2 factors in a lot of FF4, 8, 12 and 14 characters. Now, I don't know an awful lot about Final Fantasy 14. I actually would like to start playing it because it just seems like a really fun game, but I don't want to play it Billy No Mates, so if you guys have got a really good group or anything, then let me know either on Facebook or anything like that, and it'd be awesome to kind of join in. But FF8 I know a fair amount about, and I absolutely love Idea. I think that she's absolutely fierce as hell, and she's the closest thing to Cher that we'll ever get in a card game, and that's pretty cool in and of itself. But we already know that she should be in the set because there's a Sifa card that's already been spoiled sort of last December, and it references Adia, so I don't see how she couldn't be in this set. And given that Sifa is a lightning card, I assume that she will be as well. And I just hope that she's good, because the Sifa is really good, and to see Adia, I think she's going to have to be a backup. She's not going to be a forward, I don't think. But, you know, Lulu gives me vibes that like Adia would have, so maybe something to do with direct damage to forwards, or being able to deal with things that Sifa couldn't deal with, so that there's a bit of flavour in between with the game and everything as well. I think it'd be really cool. Continuing on with the fact that we already know that FF4, 8, 12 and 14 are in Opus 2, I wanted to highlight a character that I'm not entirely sure is going to make it from FF12, but I really hope he does, and that's Dr. Cid. Now, I think that the villains don't get nearly enough of a limelight in the TCG as it is. We only get sort of very, very select ones, but Dr. Cid is such a brilliant character and he's so complex, and I really like FF12's plot, apart from I don't like some of the characters that are in it, like Varn, that may as well not be there, but Dr. Cid definitely earns his place, and I think he'd be a really interesting kind of, I'd love to see him as a token generator, or the first kind of card in the game that does something like that. Though whether token generation would end up being overpowered in Final Fantasy because they don't deal damage as like chips to your health total, it doesn't matter how big your guy is, if it hits you it's going to take a chunk of your life away. But I think that it would just be really flavourful to his character, and I think that having Dr. Cid in there would round out the amount of villains that we have in the game, and I really like the villains, so I'd like to play more of them. So we're going in with yet another villain, yay, because I love villains. So I've also decided to put in Caius from Final Fantasy 13-2 on this list, because honestly I think that other than Lightning's amazing armor skin, because I absolutely love that skin, Caius is the only good thing in Final Fantasy 13-2. I can't stand Sarah or Noel, I think they're vapid as hell, but Caius, look at him. He is beautiful, and he has the wonderful privilege of sharing a voice actor with Kane, which is Liam O'Brien, and that man has a voice like butter, and it's beautiful. And I love his weapon, I think he looks like he could come out of Soul Edge, and I just really enjoy his design. But in terms of the card game, I'd love to see him as an ice forward, as I think that despite his purple colour scheme maybe misleading you into thinking he would be lightning, I think that he'd fit really well into ice due to having like freeze abilities because he time travels and things like that, and I just think that Caius would make a really, really good addition to the card game, honestly. Now, I know that Final Fantasy VII is already very well represented in the Final Fantasy card game. Through Cloud, Tifa, even Zangan and things like that. There's like a lot of FF7 characters in there, but I would love to see Kadaj turn up. I also want to make an honourable mention to Hojo, because I think he's an extremely cool character, but Kadaj I think takes it that one step further, and again I think he'd really fit into ice or water as a, you know, another villain. I know there's a big trend, and that I think that there's a lot of villains that could do to be in this game, in the card game, and because I love them all really. But Kadaj, I think his design is really cool. I think he very much embodies the element of speed, even as a wind character, because there are no wind villains as of yet. So it'd be really cool to kind of see Kadaj turn up, and there's a lot of really good art assets you can use from Advent Children, so it'd be really cool to see characters like Kadaj turn up. Now this is the last of the villains, I promise, because like I said, I like them all, but I think that there is one character in Final Fantasy X-2 that was missing, and it was LeBlanc. Now, LeBlanc is not everybody's cup of tea, but she's campy, she's crazy, she's obviously fashion oriented, and she's just a little bit cuckoo crazy. But I think that how on earth can you manage to have characters like Nuge and Baralai, who are boring and not interesting in the slightest, and not have LeBlanc available? She's so cool. I think of her as a water character straight away. I think that she'd make a really, really good kind of drawer engine-y kind of character where she's just kind of throwing her stuff out of the drawers and stuff like that. I think that she kind of embodies that really well, and I'd really like to see a character like her turn up in the card game as well. Now this next one definitely isn't a villain. And she's from a game that I think is very underrepresented at the moment, because the only real character we have from it is Terra, and we also have Kefka, they're both very good cards, but I think we could do to round out the FF6 cast a lot. And the first character I'd love to see from that game is Celes, and that's because I just think that she's just such an amazing character. She's so diverse, she's so complex, she does so many different things, like obviously there's the famous opera scene, and then there's the scene after the world has ended. I mean, I know that's spoilers, but come on, it's FF6, we've known about that for about 20 years. She, I think in the card game, would make a really good character similar to Paladin Cecil underwater, but I think that she'd probably be Earth maybe, or possibly even Fire, because I think that, you know, she has that kind of, you know, staunch defender kind of attitude, but she's also quite aggressive, and I think that she'd be really cool as somebody who can defend others with, you know, her spell sword magic and stuff like that. So I think that she just, again, would be an amazing addition, and she's a character that I'd really love to see. Now we're getting into my top three, and these are the three that I'd really, really like to see, but I think that on a couple of them I might be cheating a little bit. Now this one is Ashley, who is a character from a game called Vagrant Story. Now, it's not overly common knowledge, but Vagrant Story is in fact a Final Fantasy game. In Final Fantasy XII's Ultimania guide that was released in Japan a good few years ago, they stated that the city Leamond from the game Vagrant Story is actually a part of Ivalice. So technically this is an extension of the FF Tactics and FF12 games. And I absolutely adore Vagrant Story. It's one of my favourite games of all time, and I already know that in the original TCG they released promos like Aya Brea from Parasite Eve and things like that. So I mean, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to include a character like Ashley or Sydney. Sydney is another character I absolutely love. I even have his tattoo on my back. But I think Vagrant Story is just such an amazing game, and for it to get a little bit more attention than it's ever gotten, and by putting Ashley or a character like him into the card game, would be an amazing choice. I see him as nothing but a fire character. He'd just be all aggro, all in, but he'd have kind of techie plays, kind of like Fang or Garland, that kind of thing. I think he'd be more kind of in the mid-rangey section rather than a cheap guy that just goes nuts like Tifa. I just really love the game, and honestly just want to see it get more attention than it currently gets. Now this next character, I'm sure that all of my viewers, anyone who's subscribed to my channel or watched any of my videos, can see this coming a mile away, but my number 2 slot is Beatrix. And as a huge FF9 fanboy, and I use that term very, very sparingly because I don't like the idea of being a fanboy, but for Final Fantasy 9 I'll make an exception. Beatrix just is everything to me. I love her music themes. Roses of May and her battle theme I think are both flawless. I love the way that she's represented. I love her design. You know, I named my tournament winning deck after her sword. I mean, I know a lot of people use Save the Queen, but you know, Beatrix was who came to mind when I did that. And I think in the card game she'd just be brilliant. We already know that a Final Fantasy IX starter deck is coming out in May, and I really hope that she's in it, because if she's not, heads are going to roll. Or if she's at least not in Opus 3, I'm going to be upset. If you watch my video interview that I made with Taro Kageyama, who was the creator of the game, I even managed to slip in the fact that I wanted Beatrix in this game so badly that I kind of really wanted him to kind of take notice of the fact that I wanted her, and hopefully we'll put her in the game soon. Now, as I said a little bit earlier, this last slot is totally cheating, but given that I've seen the Aya Brea promo, I know that they can extend their reach beyond, you know, just Final Fantasy. I mean, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius has recently been using Secret of Mana and loads of other Square Enix titles, so I really want to see Edea, again, not the same Edea from Bravely Default turn up in Final Fantasy TCG. Now I know that it's a majorly long shot and it's extremely unlikely, given that Nintendo obviously owns the rights to Bravely Default. I don't know whether they'd be allowed to use their assets from that or not, but Bravely Default is a Final Fantasy game in all but name, and I bet you all thought I was going to say Sora as well from Kingdom Hearts, but no, I want Bravely Default in my card game. And, you know, again, I see her as either fire or lightning, and I'd really like to see her. She is going to be a cheap, hard hitter, kind of like, you know, Seraphy or Cloud or Tifa or something like that, but I think she'd just fit into this game so well, and by having a game like Bravely Default turn up in the TCG, you could expand the number of players by just having various different licenses involved. You know, if I've learned anything from card games like this one or UFS or anything like that, it's that widening your scope for licenses attracts so many players, and honestly I just want to get this game to grow as much as it possibly can. So that's my list of 10 characters that I'd like to see in the Final Fantasy TCG. Let me know in the comments below if you think there's anybody that I've missed. I've tried to keep it to one entry per series. There's tons of characters that I'd like to see. Vivi, Fujin and Raijin, God, there's tons, and you know, I just want to see what you guys think. So yeah, leave a like on the video if you like what you've seen today, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm also on the Final Fantasy TCG fans page for Facebook, and we'll leave the links to that and my Facebook page on the description box, and hopefully I'll get to hear from you guys soon. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you guys later. Bye now.